Hello, hi, welcome everybody to the session that has been arranged by USTP PPD Manjung today. I'm representing Cik Khairunisa to welcome you all to the session today, and please feel free to write your name and which school you come from so that we can sort of like identify and give you a shout out later. We would love to see people from all over Malaysia telling us who you are. So before I begin, my name is Ana Shirin binti Razirabi. I will be conducting the session today, a 1 hour session. We'll be focusing on writing for SPM for the 1119 paper. So henceforth, 1119 paper will be divided into 4 papers. Paper 1 will be reading, paper 2 will be writing, paper 3 will be listening, and paper 4 will be speaking. So today we'll be focusing on paper 2, writing. So the concept or the idea that I would like to focus on today is on the 3 T's. Perhaps it's an idea or a concept that most of you are familiar with, be it teachers or students, but it's probably good that we can re-emphasize it and have a look at it in the context of how CEFR aligned curriculum approaches writing as something that is communicable, relevant, and as close as possible to our daily life, right? So I would, first of all, allow me to share the screen. And before I forget, the link to the SPL KPM, if I'm not mistaken, will be given at the end of the session, and also the e-certificate link for your personal details will be given at the end of the session. So let's begin. So I'm going to share my screen first. Entire screen. Right. So throughout the session, of course, you are allowed to, in fact, you are encouraged to ask any questions that you might have regarding to what I am presenting. And I have, from time to time, I'll probably have a look at it on my other device and try to address your concerns. Okay. So a little bit background about me. My name is Ana Shirin, as I've said just now. I teach in Sekolah Menengah Agama Persekutuan Kajang. I teach Form 5s, year in, year out, Form 5s and Form 3 at the same time, mostly. I think for the exception of my first year, I've always taught Form 5. So I've been able to see the transformation in the idea that we approach language and how we approach writing itself. And the way that we are assessing, of course, goes hand in hand and in line with the changes in the curriculum. Having the CEFR aligned curriculum allows us to really test our students at the level that they are supposedly at. Compared to before this, our 1119 paper probably focuses a bit more on what a native speaker would probably be expected to be at the level of a native speaker. So I would say the new CEFR paper is friendlier and more apt to assess the Form 5 students at the SPM level. Right. So what is the 3 T's that I would like you to focus on today? So the 3 T's is actually the task, the tone, and the tense that you have to address in each piece of writing that you will produce in your 1119 paper 2. Okay? If you haven't gotten familiar with the new format, in paper 2 now, we have 3 parts. The first part is that you're going to write an email and it will be about 80 words. The second part, you're going to write an essay where you will give your personal view as well as reasoning, which is in about 120 to 150 words. And the third part, you actually have 3 questions and you only need to choose one. And for that part, you will be writing about 200 to 250 words. About the number of words, we'll address it later as we go along with every single part of the paper. So the task, the tone, and the tense. How does this relate to the marking itself? As a good student who's answering every examination question, you need to know what or how you are being assessed. Bagaimanakah permarkahan akan dijalankan? So for the task, it's relating to the content, right? So the content mark is 5 marks for each of the part. All right. So for the content, we need to see that it is addressed wholly, and you are giving examples as well when you're answering the question. Okay. So that's the mark for the content. So how do you know what you need to do? Is by answering the questions that are given in each part. The beauty about every question that we have in this new paper is that it comes in a question form, and all the candidate needs to do is to answer the questions plus elaboration. Okay, so the first T that you have to address is the task, and the second T that you have to address is the tone. Is it a formal one or is it an informal one? So this one very much relates to the communicative achievement. For communicative achievement, it's an equal mark of 5 as well, right? Similarly to your content. So another beautiful thing about our CEFR paper is that you are given a separate mark for the content that you write. You are given a separate mark for the tone that you would use for your essay, right? And also, the third T is tense. This one is another 5 marks given, whether you can use the language appropriately. And language would cover the tense that you use, you would cover the vocabulary that you use, and the sentence structure. And you are, if in case you are wondering where's another 5, because the total mark for each part is 20 marks, the other 5 actually comes from organization, your ability to organize your essay, as well as using cohesive devices and connectors. So about the three T's, I've mentioned just now that for the tasks, you can answer the questions that are given in each part. And for the tone, you also get the information depending on who is the audience or the context that has been set in the question. Every question will tell you who you are writing this essay, this review, or this email for. And the third part for tense, also in the question, you are able to identify whether you are going to write it in present, past, or even the future tense. Okay, so that's down with the three T's. So as we go through, I'm going to go through parts by part. So the first task that we are expected to answer is sending an email. Sending an email is usually between close friends or with people that you know, or even in the working context later, as you are all Form 5 students or future Form 5 students, you might be sending email to your bosses, who's someone who's a higher authority, or businesses to send quotation or whatever. But in the context of your SPM paper, you would be sending an email to a friend. Okay, so the example that has been given is that you are agreeing to do an activity. Someone will invite you to do something, and you have to agree or disagree, and even you have to give suggestion on things that you should do. In contrast with the PT3 paper, the PT3 paper would ask the candidate to give suggestions of what to do. For the SPM paper, the activity has already been assigned. All you need to do is answer the two questions given. Now remember, this is important because you have 3 pieces of writing that you have to produce within 1 hour and 30 minutes. So you really need to time yourself properly and write within the word limit. Is it wrong to write above the word limit? I would say it's not. In fact, most teachers in the Form 5 would have told you by now that word limit is not necessarily a condition that we look at to penalize or bring down your marks. But if you are expected to write 80 words and you end up writing 200 words, that would show that you are not able to communicate in the suitable way. So might be marked down in your communicative achievement, and you might be marked down for your organization because you did not fulfill the brief. This relates very much to your working life later. If you are expected to produce a report of about 4 pages, you can't be writing 8 pages and submitting it to your boss. That would be very much inappropriate. So as much as possible, follow the word limit recommended. But you will not be penalized for writing more or even a bit less. If it's 80 words, perhaps it's a good idea for you to write at most 120 words. Give it a leeway of about 50%. Even so, 120 words will be considered as quite long. 100 words will be much more appropriate. So when you are writing an email, what are the possible questions that could be asked to you? I will be using the sample paper that has been provided by Lembaga Peperiksaan because that is the one that we can use without any doubt as to what the task might require. There are, however, a lot of workbook out there that you can find suitable material to help you further in answering the question. Right. For sending the email, you are expected to agree to do an activity, and the activities could be camping or other outdoor activities, or maybe agreeing on classes, sports, or even holiday. The good thing about part one is the context or the task that you have to fulfill, the content that you have to produce will not be beyond your schooling life. Okay, so it will respect you as a teenager and know that this is your limitation as a teenager. This is your world. This is probably how you know how to respond or what to respond. Okay, so sending an email in about 80 words. So where do we get the three T's? This is where you look at the question, right? So this is the question that I have taken from the SPM sample paper from Lembaga Peperiksaan 2020, right? So this is the question that we have where you received an email from your new friend, Amy, who has just moved to your hometown. So receiving an email from your new friend should give you an indication that the tone that you will establish is actually informal because you are writing to a friend. This is directed only to one person. No one else besides her is going to read this. So the tone that you will use is informal and personal. But there are students who usually ask, if you say it's informal, can I use the word gotta, wanna, gonna? No, that's probably not a good idea. In fact, you should be writing is going to, wants to, or is going to or want to. That would be a more appropriate word to use or phrase to use. So the tone that we have established for this question is informal and personal, and that would generally be the tone for this question. So what does it mean when you are able to use an informal and personal tone? It means that the pronouns that you would use will probably be more I, and me, and my, and you. It will be your own personal opinion, your own personal suggestion. So using the pronoun I to begin most of your sentences would indicate that you are using the correct tone and the correct personal opinion tone when you're writing. Okay? So also from the question, you can extract the tense that you need to use. How do you know that? Let's read the question together. You received an email from your new friend, Amy, who has just moved to your hometown. This is in the past tense, and this is giving you the context that the email has already been received. But where do you get the present tense is in this part of the email itself. Hi, the school holiday is finally here. Let's go for a picnic with our friend. Let us go for a picnic with our friends. So this is showing that it is actually in the present tense. It's something that you are going to do, perhaps in the future, but when you give the suggestion, it will be based on situation that is happening currently or now. So you should be using the present tense. So that's the beauty of the CEFR aligned curriculum questions, where you can actually derive the tense that you need to use from the question itself. Where shall we go and what can we do there? Remember just now I said that most of the tasks in these questions will be coming up in the form of a question. And all that the candidate needs to do is to answer the question in the correct sequence. The first question that I have here is where to go? And the second question is what can we do there? And the third question is, what should we bring? So as a candidate, I would very much advise you to derive and take out the treatise before you start writing your essay. Identify what is the tense that you need to write in. Identify the tone that you need to write in. If it's informal and personal, most of your sentences would begin with the word I, with the pronoun I. And most of your sentences will be in the active form instead of the passive one. Because active sentences show a little bit more of informality and warmth compared to passive sentences. All right. And the third one is the task. How can you derive the task from each question or each part? Look at the questions that has been highlighted in the middle of it. In this instance, there are three questions that we need to address, which is where to go, what to do, and what to bring. Now, it's a very good idea for you to have in your mind that when you have to give suggestions, or for example, what can we do there and what should we bring, it's very good that if you can provide two alternatives. Okay, for where shall we go, perhaps it's good to stick to one suggestion of where to go, but two alternatives of what you can do there and what should we bring. This shows that you are able to provide suggestions in a wide range, and it also allows you to use a wider vocabulary compared to only suggesting one. Okay, so let us move on to the sample itself. So when I'm writing, I would actually advise my students as well to write the treatise at the side of the paper before you start writing, so that you know what you need to do. So the task that I have to do is, I need to answer where I need to go for this picnic. I need to answer what I need to do or what can I do over there. And I also need to address what can I bring. My tone will be informal and personal, and I'll be using the simple present tense. So this is a paragraph that I have written. It's about 82 words. Right? It's about 82 words. So it's a bit more than the recommended word of 80. Would I be penalized for writing in 82 words? Definitely not. In fact, perhaps if these words are very essential to me, for me to show my language prowess, it is advised to you to go a bit more, but not exceedingly more. Okay, so 82 words. So how did I write this? These are the things that I've decided to insert or put into my paragraph to show that I am able to answer all the task questions. My first T is address. My second T of tone is address. And my third T of tense is also address. Here, I start with hi, I think. I immediately address the question. I did not waste time asking how Amy is. The context of an email is that it's a frequent exchange. So naturally or logically, you should know how Amy is doing right now. And she is living within your area. But she is only interested in this particular subject. So when you write your reply to her, you do not need to ask how she is or how is her family, or you hope that she's doing well, because those ideas should be logically in your knowledge. Okay, so when you reply to the email, you would straight away go to the point. Hi, the first question is, where shall we go? And I would answer, I think. Why do I use I think? That would show the idea of it's personal. This is what I think. You may not agree, but this is my opinion. Having put that, is much more better than just saying, hi, we should go to the city park for our picnic. So that one would be more of a strong suggestion. Putting the I think there would establish an informal yet personal tone. The second paragraph, during the school holiday in July, the weather is usually fair and sunny. This is my elaboration or my reason about why I should go to the city park. So I answer the question first by saying that we should go to the city park, and then I provide an elaboration for it, which is only one sentence and one reason. Do not go beyond that. You do not need to provide two reasons for one single point in the CEFR aligned examination paper, because you need to write in a simple, curt, and short manner. So address the question, answer it, and provide one elaboration. That would be sufficient. What is the good part about this is that your elaboration actually has adjectives. So you're able to get good marks for the language. Okay? Right. So you have fair and sunny. Even if you just say it's very sunny, that will be sufficient. Maybe by that way, you can write 80 words only. All right. And then in my next paragraph, not sorry, my next sentence, I indicate that this is an entirely new point that we're going to answer by using a cohesive device, which is as for the activities. So now I'm no longer talking about why we should go there. I'm talking about what we can do. And the way that I write it for this one is I believe. It's another alternative for I think. Again, this adds the touch of informality. It adds the touch of personal point of view. So you'll be able to establish a very high mark for your communicative achievement just by using these simple words that is, I believe, not really out of your jargon or your vernacular. Okay? And your repertoire of language. I'm sure you have this idea of I think and I believe before you give the suggestion of what you can really do. So look at, if I can go back to the question. All right, sorry. Right, if I can go back to the question, where shall we go? And the question form is what can we do there? So it's a conscious decision on my part to answer the question using the same structure, which is I believe we can play frisbee. By doing that, you know that you are answering the question appropriately. If you cannot use the word can play or can do, then you know that you're probably not answering the question. Okay, so try to use the sentence structure that is given in the question to form your idea. And where do you actually have the opportunity to use your own sentence or your own ideas, your own words, is when you give your elaboration. My elaboration here is not in a separate sentence. I've decided to just attach it together. So this one is since the area is quite large and spacious. So I think we can play frisbee over there. This is an example of a connector. I've only decided to highlight the cohesive devices. So having connectors like during, since to indicate time reference, these are all the things that we look at when we want to give you your marks for your organization and language. So use these words to indicate time. And to signpost or to signal that now I'm going to start on a different point, but it's still about activity, I use the word furthermore. Another alternative for furthermore is moreover, in addition, or besides that point, besides playing frisbee, right? Make that reference over there. I wouldn't suggest that you just use besides. I would suggest that you use besides playing frisbee to show that I'm still talking about activities, but now it's an additional point. So you don't have to write longer sentences. A cohesive device is able to allow you to write in the correct way. Okay? So furthermore, we can play kites when the evening gets windier. So over here, if you have noticed, the tenses that I have used are primarily in present tense, but I do use the models that are in the question. I use should over here because the question asked, where shall we go? I use can over here because the question asks, what can we do? So I followed the question to build the base of my sentence before I actually elaborate using my own words. Okay? And what are the types of elaboration that you can use? You can use cause, you can use effect, you can use example. Just remember that CE square. Those are the things that is very, very helpful for you when you want to write your elaboration. And your elaboration can be in a separate sentence or in the same sentence. And then I want to write or address the third question. So because I have already drawn out all these tasks on the right-hand side of my paper or the left-hand side of my paper, because I'm able to do that, so I am able to make sure that I understand and write, I am able to answer all of the question. So my next question that I have to answer is, what should I bring? So to answer this one, As I've said just now, it's great if you can answer or give two alternatives. I've given two alternatives for the activities that you can do. Now I'm also going to give two alternatives on the things that you can bring. So in order to enjoy our picnic, this is another cohesive device. I'm answering question 3. So this is a separate point altogether. So I signpost it, or I start it with in order to. So this will indicate that now I'm going to talk about something else. I think it's a good idea. So I use I think again. It's a good idea to bring a large mat and ample amount of food besides the frisbee and kites. For this one, I did not give a reason. Perhaps because if you are running out of words, perhaps it's a good idea to just provide the alternatives. But if you can give more reasons, that will be better. Okay? So this would be very much sufficient to grant you 20 marks. For candidates who are wondering, how come you write 80 words for task A, it's 20 marks, but task 2 is 120 to 150 words, is also 20 marks. And the last part, which is 200 to 250 words, it's also 20 marks. Now, the marks are very much reliant on the descriptors that the examiners or the teachers will have to look at. For part 1, it is much easier for candidate to get full marks as long as you are able to use the language that is appropriate for the A2 level, perhaps more of the PT3 Form 1 level. Okay, so this is targeted to allow you to show which language level are you at. A very good student will probably ace all 3. An average student will probably ace part 1 and part 2, and maybe not so much on part 3. And another candidate will probably sail through part 1, but probably struggle in part 2 and part 3. But you are given the opportunity to show your language ability rather than shutting it down, like in the previous paper. It could be very, very difficult for most students. But this paper allows you to show your own language ability, and we celebrate your ability to the 3 different tasks. So you have the same marks, but it's not the same descriptor. So naturally, a student who can get 20 marks for part 1 may not be able to get full marks in part 2 and part 3. It depends on your language level. So that's part 1. About 30 minutes in. So I'm just going to look at some question. All right. There's someone saying that I have to change the resolution. I will try to have a look at it.
It's not you. It's the
Right.
other. It's the other audience that have to change their setting on
Oh,
YouTube.
right. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Thank you so much, Miss Nisa, for the assurance. I think my setting is pretty much I'm looking at another screen. It looks fine, but perhaps you need to change your resolution. That's the advice. Someone asked, when are we finishing? What time are we ending? Hopefully in an hour. So hopefully by 4. But if we can't, probably going to take 15 minutes of your time. Right. So that's part 1. When we look at part 1, usually students are motivated because I'm able to answer this. I can nail this because there's only 3 questions that I need to answer. These are the tense, these are the tone, and generally you can apply these 3 T's to any of the part 1. Let's look at part 2. Part 2 question is a bit broader but still personal to yourself. Why do I say it's broader? Because now you are expected to write an essay, right? And you have more number of words that you have to write in. And then they only ask you to write in an appropriate style. This could be a triggering point for some students when you are not given a what is it we call the format. What format should I write this in? So there could be a trigger for some of you. But just keep in mind that when you're answering essay, it's just generally like a 3-paragraph essay without a particular format. And the great thing about this CAFR aligned curriculum, it really wants to test you on your language knowledge rather than you adhering to certain format. We see your tone, whether you are formal or informal, in the language that you use, right? So don't worry much about the format, but it's great if you can remember or apply some of them. So don't panic when you see questions and you say, I don't remember the format. You as a candidate, you need to address and answer the question. And if you can use the correct 3 T's, which are you address the task, you are able to use the correct tone, and you're using the correct tense, you are off on your way to get at least 17 per 20, right? So let us go to the question. What do you need to know about the question? Because the question that we have in part 2 is going to ask you on your personal opinion. You will need to sort of give, this is based on 4.21 of your writing, where you actually have to give opinions and different point of views. Different point of views. Pardon the telegram. Okay, different point of views. So when you are writing or addressing this question, you will not be asked to provide a world viewpoint that is beyond your own personal life. So similar to part 1, you are not expected to give something that is beyond your student life. But what you are now having a change in is the audience that will be reading or responding to the text that you are going to write. And the context is always given in the question. That's the beauty about the CAFR questions, right? So let's look at the question itself, where we can derive the 3 T's. The first T, which is what to buy. It is in the form of question, or actually in bullets over here, not really in the form of questions, but without the question mark, which is you need to address what to buy, all right? And you have to give reasons for your choice and where do you actually buy this. And for the tone, how do you identify the tone? You need to know who you are writing for. And that would usually come in the opening part of your question, which is your class has been discussing how they spend their money, and your teacher has asked you to write an essay about what you would spend your money on. So this one gives you the context that you are writing either for your teacher or for your classmates. This is not something that someone outside of the class is going to read, but perhaps your audience is larger than Amy. So you cannot be entirely informal in this one. You would not have the I think, you would not have a lot of questions when you're writing. So you would be using a semi-formal tone. How do we establish a semi-formal tone? In part 1, you would probably have a lot of um, active sentences. In fact, there's probably no passive sentences as well. But in part 2, you probably need to include 1 or 2 passive sentences to establish that degree of formality, right? And it also shows your ability to write a complex grammatical structure, which is what we're starting to look at in part 2 of your SPM question. Okay, so in the first part, we are looking at simple grammatical or simple grammatical structures, but here we are looking for complex grammatical structures, some of it. So your ability to use passive sentences would establish that. But the tone is also still personal. Why? Because it's what you want to buy. It's not about what something someone else wants to do or someone else wants to wants to purchase. So for Amy, for part 1, it was what Amy wanted to do, and you have to give suggestion to accommodate to her. But for this part, it's totally on you, what you want to do, what you want to buy. So this would allow you to sort of put your real self into it. So you're not playing with something that you're not familiar with. So when you address the question or the task about where to buy or what to buy, for the first question, similar to where to go just now, the first question, we would probably only provide one option because we don't want our essay to go rambling on and also out of control. There will be too many things to write if you suggest 2 things that you want to buy. So for this context, it's best to stick to 1 or perhaps a maximum of 2, but I would probably not recommend that. For the what to buy, you will only buy 1 thing. And for the reasons, this is the great thing again about the CFR question. It gives you in the plural form, but it does not necessarily assign to you how many reasons you should write about. So given that leeway of that liberty or that freedom to write how many reasons you can write about, as long as it's more than one and you can provide elaboration, I would suggest that you only need to write two reasons for it plus elaborations. And this would allow you to write between the 125 to 150 word limit. Can you write a bit more? I hope you remembered what I said just now, that you can write a bit more, but not exceedingly more. Okay? And the tense. What kind of tense are we going to write in this question? So here, what you would like to buy, reasons for your choice, and where do you usually buy this thing. So here it's established using the word do in the third question and what you would like to buy. You would be using the present tense. You derive the tense that you need to use in your essay based on the question. So the question is the one that you need to de- you know use as the base where you get the treatise from before you start writing. For people who are asking what slide or what app I'm using in this presentation, I'm just using PowerPoint actually. Um, but it's organized in a way that it looks like it's moving here and there, but it's just PowerPoint, right? The simple PowerPoint. Why do I use PowerPoint? Because I think it's the most versatile that you can actually convert to Google Slides compared to some other application that I do use, but it may not be very friendly in many situations. Right. So to answer that question, any other question before I go on? Um, right. Mostly people are just saying where they're from. So good to know, good to see people are from all over Malaysia in this session today. Right. So how do we answer this question then? Part 2. Now remember, before you start writing, you write the treatise to remind you what you need to do. Because for this question, you may use the four squares, right? But let's be realistic. The four squares are wonderful when you have time to write your essay. But when you are writing in exam condition, if the four squares takes a lot of time, you need to really test it out first. Can you use the four square and write this essay in 30 minutes? If you can't do that, then don't waste time using techniques that may not work for you. That's why it's very, very good for you to do real-time testing and use the different techniques that you know to choose one that really works for you. I can only recommend you to do this, to derive the treatise and to focus on the treatise when you are writing. But ultimately, you must decide which technique works well for you. So for me personally, for my students, this is what I will ask them to do. Before you begin writing, you derive the treatise from the question, you put it at the side, and then you start to answer them. Even before you start answering, you must decide how many questions are you going to write. And you can even use this as a basis for you to branch out and write what are the reasons that you're going to write about. Okay, so for this one, I've written, surprise, surprise, more than 150 words. But is it exceedingly more? Not necessarily. I'm about 20 words more than 150 words of the cut-off limit. So I'm not exceedingly more. I'm not even 10% more. Am I 10% more? Yeah, I'm about 15% more, but I'm not like 20% or 30% more. And I did this, and some of my students were also able to do something about this length with this language in about 20 minutes after planning and deriving for about 5 minutes. So you have the baki or the balance 5 minutes for you to check your language. So it's very important. Plan, write, edit. Okay? When you're doing, the 30 minutes must be spent on that. So how did I do this? So the introduction is where that you get to play a bit of a flowery language, but not too much. If in part 1, you straight away address with, hi, I think we should go. For this question, you are allowed to, if given the opportunity to splurge my money, so I've got one word that is above level, right? Splurge is actually, the level is C1. So it's above level for this one. You are expected to be at B2 for CFR. If you can use some words that are above level, the examiners will give you a tick. And the more ticks that I see, when I mark, the higher marks that you're going to get for the language, right? So use good vocabulary as well. And I use this structure is considered as a complex structure. You studied conditionals since you were in Form 3, Form 4, and Form 5. Study your conditionals and use your conditionals in your sentences or your essays. This would set you apart from your other friends. All right. So if you were to do a revision for English, it's a good idea to look at conditionals and the use of models. This would allow you to write great and complex sentences. So coming back here, over here I use a conditional sentence. If given the opportunity to splurge my money on a single item. So this is a bit of a flowery language that is contributing to my 170 words. So I would love to purchase a Samsung Flip Z. Now notice that when I answered this question for the task, is exactly like how the question is in the question over here. What would you like to buy? And when I answered it, I said, I would love to purchase. I don't want to use buy because buy is A2 level. So I want to use word that is a bit higher, B1 or B2. I would like to purchase a Samsung Flip Z. And this is what I want to buy. If you want to buy something else, then it's perfectly fine because you would know what you would like to purchase. Given this opportunity to write what you are familiar with would actually grant you higher mark for your content because, well, the first thing is the teachers aren't really going to check. They're going to check everything that you write about. Like if you say the features of a Samsung Flip Z is that it can flip on its own to another house, or it can flip on itself. That's Flip Z. Perhaps the teachers will have to take it at face value. We're not necessarily going to check everything, all the facts that you write about, but you must write it in a convincing way. So this one is what I want to buy. If I have 3,500, I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen how awesome this food is, right? So this one is an elaboration that I have about Samsung Flip Z. Because remember, you need to give one elaboration, all right? So I give a little bit of background also on the item that I want to buy because not everyone knows what is Samsung Flip Z. So the phone is what it can do and when it was just released. So the only past tense that I use in this whole text is only for was just released because this is truly something that has happened in the past. But the other parts of it, I am able to just use a simple present tense. I don't really have continuous ke, past perfect ke, present perfect ke, not really. I just use simple present tense to show to you that you can write it using a simple present tense and establish a good structure in your essays. So here I have the first sentence is conditional. Then my second sentence is double compound, right? You can make it better actually. Instead of using two ends in a paragraph. So this is actually my student's essay. I just took it as it is and put it here. And for this essay, I have given this candidate um, 17 per 20. And I think there are things that can be worked on, which is here, like you see this sentence, instead of writing two ends, you can change it into while or as well as to replace the word and. Okay, and this is only to answer the first question, which is what I want to buy. I only focus on one thing so that I can write between the word limit or a bit more, but not exceedingly more. In my second paragraph, I focus on answering the two questions. The question just said reasons. So I would write two reasons because that's plural, but I won't write three because even if I write two or three, I'll probably get the same mark for content. So write two reasons with elaboration. That is the one that could give you higher mark for content because for content, we are looking at its address and we understand wholly. We don't understand parts and bits. There's nothing missing in it. Okay. All right. So look at here. The way that I have addressed it is I do have active sentences, which is green, which is not coming out. When you don't see it being highlighted, that means it's actually just active sentences. Like this one is active, this one is active. But I do have some passive sentences. Why? Because the tone that I'm trying to use is actually semi-formal. I do have my opinion. It's personal to me, but I also try to make it somewhat like appealing, or it's somewhat like can be understood by everybody else by paying more attention on the product. So I put some passive sentences to show that I'm talking about the thing. I want you to focus on the thing and not so much about me in certain instances. I also use a lot of pronouns over here, personal pronouns, to show again that this is my own personal opinion. So by using all of this, you are able to establish a suitable tone, which is you have some passive sentences as well as personal pronouns to make it semi-formal. And my tenses are true and true, simple present tense with some models like can be bought. Okay, because why? Why did I use can be bought? Um, where do you buy? Usually buy these things. So I put can be bought because this is what I know. Maybe these items can be also be bought somewhere else, but what I know is this item can be bought at any authorized Samsung phone shop. So I'm using also passive sentences to show a little bit of in a formality that it's not um, totally just my personal opinion. This is kind of like a fact. So I'm not going to attach my like I think or I believe here. I'm not going to put my point of view in this sentence, although this is truly what I know. Okay. So by using a passive sentence, if I've confused you, maybe I can phrase it differently. When you put the word I think or I believe or I know, that one will only be your own personal point of view. It will not be considered as something that is factual. By putting it like this in a passive sentence, it becomes something of a factual manner, and it allows people to see it as a certain amount of truth. I'm sure the phone can be bought some other places as well, besides only at phone shops or at Shopee and Lazada. Perhaps you can even buy it, um, at the shopping mall or whatever, instead of just a shop. So this is what I know, but I'm going to make it as something that is almost like factual by writing it in a passive sentence. So did I put like necessarily a conclusion to this? Not really, because I need to only answer the questions. If you want to put another sentence that says that I hope I can buy this soon, that would be enough as a conclusion for this essay. You need not write a separate conclusion to address this question. Okay, so that's part two. Nice, sweet, short. One item, two reasons, and two places that you can suggest where to buy it. So that's part two. All right. Before I go on,
Miss Anna,
yeah,
dengar tak?
dengar, dengar. Yes.
Somebody was asking, what does it mean by semi-formal? Because you mentioned that you
Right.
would like to use a semi-formal tone for this part. So somebody
Right.
was asking just now.
Great. That's a great question. I'll just address it again. Having a semi-formal tone is when you use passive sentences, as highlighted over here in orange. Over here, that's a passive sentence form, and but there's only one or two in the throughout this whole essay. The others will be in active form, and then you would usually have a lot of I and my in this essay. So it becomes semi-formal. Like some of it, which is kind of factual, I'm going to write it in the passive sentence form to show that, hey, this is actually a fact and it doesn't really come from me. But when it's coming from me, from what I believe of how it can help me, then I'm going to use an active sentence, right? So I hope that clarifies. Are there any words that can be used to ensure we get max marks? How to identify those words? Thank you, Teach. Right, Shamila asked this question. Specific words is actually dependent on the kind of topic that you are learning. That's why your textbooks, right, Form 4 and Form 5, or even Form 3, even from Form 3, it's great because it's addressing the topics that you are probably going to answer in your examination. Like when questions are built or when questions are designed, I believe it doesn't go beyond the scope of your textbook. So always look at your textbook and you are using appropriate words for the appropriate context. That's why in your Form 5 books, you have a lot of phrasal verbs being focused on, because phrasal verbs allows you to use these words that are otherwise quite normal. Like if I say break, it means pecah, and out means keluar. But when I use break out, it means a totally different new word. So using expressions like that, phrasal verbs, would also help you a lot. So I would say focus on topics, have a circle map that you have in your English notebook, right? You should have your own English notebook that you carry from your Form 4 until you're working. In those circle maps, you can just have topics and then words related to it, word collocation. That will help you a lot, I believe. Right. So now we're going on to the
Okay.
third part. Yeah.
I have a few more questions. I saw a question from Teacher Roshada just now.
All right, Shiroshada.
Teacher Roshada said, how do you divide the time something for the three parts? Yeah,
Right.
what's the recommended time for part one, part two, and part three? She was asking that.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. This is how I have advised my students. This is not um, the holy grail of how you should address it. I believe you should spend about 15 to 20 minutes on part one, 30 minutes on part two, and 40 minutes on part three. And remember, the whole process involves planning, writing, editing. It's the PWE must be done. It cannot be just writing itself. It's 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And the word limit that we have actually allows you to do that. And a lot of time perfection um, exercises must be done by both teachers and students. If you are doing revision for English, take questions wherever you can find it, write it, time yourself well, and don't take shortcuts around it. Do time perfection exercises, because the real issue for 1119 since yonder years has always been students not having enough time to answer. So time perfection will actually help you, and my recommendation is 20, 30, 40. Right, looking at the word limit that have been assigned for every parts. Right, we are about I've got about 8 more minutes. Cik Nisa, is it okay if I take a bit more time?
Yes, of course. Take as much time as you need.
All right. Kids, if you are listening, thank you so much for spending time, and fellow teachers as well. I hope you don't mind giving me a bit more time to look at part three. Right. But part three, I'm only going to focus on one particular type, which is outstanding compared to what we have already done before this. In fact, for part one and part two also is something very outstanding than from 1119 for the past 15 years. Yeah. I know that previously we had something like this in the previous, perhaps when I was schooling, we had something like this about 20 odd years ago. But now we're coming back to that, and we're being fairer to the students. We are being much more friendlier to the students as these questions are really pitched to their level. So I feel really happy to see that we are actually taking this path with our assessment. Now let's go on to part three. So for part three, we're going to have three options given and 40 minutes, about 40 minutes taken to answer each question. Oh, sorry, to answer this part. And you only need to choose one. You've got either according to the sample paper in Lembaga Periksaan that has been prepared by Lembaga Periksaan in 2020, which is available now in circulation. You can download it. A sample given, one of it could be an article. It could also be a report. Let me tell you from now, it could also be a report. But remember, I said just now, the beauty of the CAFR aligned curriculum is that format or how it appears may not be necessarily the thing that we look at and we give marks for format. It's no longer like your previous 1119, or there's marks for format that you have to remember. We really want to focus on how you write and whether you are able to address the question appropriately, rather than addressing all these nitty gritty things. So for example, if you write an article, you know that you need to have the title, but if you don't write who it's written from, it wouldn't be an issue in this new 1119 paper. Okay, so it could be an article, could be a report. It's about 200 to 250 words, so it's about 100 words lesser than what is expected from your previous PT3 1119 paper. So 200 to 250 words to address or answer three questions. And all of the questions you need to give in plural form. So what are the types of foods would you like to be served? What special facilities? So you need to give, for this one, for question one, the first T, task. You need to answer 3 questions. And for each of these questions, you probably have to give 2 elaboration or reasoning for it, or at least 1 elaboration. Okay, so answer 3 questions. Let me backtrack on what I said. I may not have said it correctly. To answer each question, you must give 2 alternatives, and for these 2 alternatives, you must give an elaboration for each of it. So for example, what other types of food would you like to be served? You must suggest one, which is perhaps you suggest that we should serve hot dogs and burgers because students love it. So you must give an elaboration for it, which is either a cause, effect, or an example. The other one is another type of food. So perhaps you say that we should serve satay because it's an awesome food. All right. So you give 2 alternatives to answer this question, and you have to give an elaboration in the form of a cause, effect, or example for it. What special facilities you need to suggest 2 facilities and provide reasons. How can you improve your canteen? You need to provide 2 suggestions and give elaboration for it in the form of example, effect, or cause. C E square. So by just addressing this question, you can easily reach that 250 words. But now we come to what we are, the second T, which is the tone. What kind of tone are you supposed to use for this one? So because you're writing this article and it will be displayed in the school magazine, so your audience is larger than part 2 just now. So it becomes a formal tone and impersonal. So what do we have in a formal tone? We do and impersonal. We do not have a lot of I. In fact, you'll be writing a lot of this in the passive sentence to establish that this is probably what I feel, but I don't want to put my opinion into it that much. Okay, so my suggestion is when you answer this, it's best that you have a lot of passive sentences. And the tense that you have to use is present tense plus some models. I will not be focusing so much on the article today. The one that I'm truly interested in is the review. Why? Because review is the part that is really outstanding about this new paper. Because in part 3, the third question is a narrative, which has always been something that is very common in the 1119 paper since 30 years ago, to write a story. And they will give you a guide. You have to describe the dream and how the dream is achieved. These are the 2 things that you need to talk about. Writing stories has always been, it's not necessarily challenging, but the biggest issue is how do you invoke the interest of the reader, okay, to make it interesting. So the narrative one, the task is for you to write a description of a dream and how the dream is achieved. Those are the 2 questions that you need to address. What is the tone? The tone will be personal because it's a story. So you will use a lot of I's, my, personal pronoun. You have to use a lot of personal pronouns for this one. Not many passive sentences because
Can they
you,
add idioms? A student was asking, can we add idioms?
the question of can, that's talking about ability. Of course, you are able to put it in. Whether it would affect the marks or is it a necessity for you to put it in? Not necessarily, because try to write in the way that you can convey the ideas that you want to put in. Actually, for narrative, it's quite appropriate to put idioms, but of course not for articles. But is it a necessity for you to memorize idioms? Is it a necessity for you to truly put in, make sure that every paragraph you have one idiom? It's trying to move away from our perception of the previous 1119. In fact, what will be further encouraged for this new 1119 paper is for you to use phrasal verbs, suitable sentences. If you can use it in the suitable context, yeah, sure, why not? Go ahead, use it. But remember, a lot of idioms actually takes a lot of words. So you are actually shortchanging yourself if you write
Trying
too
to put
long and
idiom,
yeah,
yeah.
and try to emulate, try to insert idioms, at every single part that you can, when it's no longer the thing that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but that's a very good
don't just
question.
simply putting idioms.
Yeah,
Just
true.
for the sake of putting idioms, yeah.
Yeah. I've got a question from Puan Cik Shing over here. What are the possible question genres that would appear in part three other than report, article, review, and story writing? Um, as far as I know, that's it. But
Report,
do look.
article, review, and story writing. That's all that's gonna
Yeah,
come out.
because you have to look back at your writing that has been covered in your textbook of Form 4 and Form 5, with the exception of resume writing, of course. All the others are essays, articles, even reports are quite seldom. I think we only had one report. It was a newspaper report that you had to write. So just prepare your students with newspaper report, some reports. But again, the format of it is not really something that we're really focusing on over here, but rather how you would write it using the correct words and sentence structure and the correct pronouns to establish the appropriate tones. But very good question.
I have another
Cikgu,
good question here
yeah.
from Lukman. Teacher,
Yeah.
how do I want to be like you? Your presentation is very smooth.
Well, now I'm not so smooth anymore. Thank you, Lokman, for stumping me in my smoothness. I don't know. Perhaps because I've done this with my students, right? I've got great students in Sekolah Menengah Agama Persekutuan Kajang. Very dedicated students, so I actually have to always keep up with them. So that's why I guess I have to do more. So thank you, Lokman. I take that as a compliment from you. I see here Cikgu Tiang, types of report, police report, newspaper report, magazine report, school report, and reviews. Okay, so many simple type of essays to teach and learn. Exactly. In fact, that's why I'm going to focus a bit more on my review. I know it's already 4 o'clock. I'll try to take only 15 minutes to do this. Cik Nisa, any more questions?
Tak ada. No, none.
Right. Cikgu Tiang said, I'd say informal letter could come out in part 3 as well. I'd say no. Probably not. Not for this new paper. Cikgu Tiang asking again, would informal letter come out in part 3 too? Um, we are open to the possibility. Let's not limit ourselves to it. Whatever that is in the textbook, we should teach our students. But ultimately, remember what I said about in this new CFR aligned curriculum. There is no marks given for format, right? It's not a separate mark for format. You would be looking at it in the communicative achievement. Even if you don't really get the format right, the teachers cannot, the examiners will not penalize you much, because if you are able to use the correct tone, the correct sentence structure, the correct pronouns, there are other factors that contribute for you to get a higher mark, right? So it, teach your kids informal letter. English oral must have partners, right? Okay, Adam, probably we can have another session for that. For speaking, yeah, English speaking will have a partner.
That's another question. Does the textbook really important for this new format? I think
Is
this
the
is a
textbook
teacher. Yeah.
is the textbook really important for the new format? Textbooks has always been the source of reference for any of the SPM questions that you have seen in the past 15 years or so. What I'm trying to tell you is that it doesn't go beyond the textbook limitation. If you think that, oh, the question is so hard, but you can find ideas of it or concept of it actually from your own textbook across the nation. And now it's greater because we only have one textbook for the whole nation. We used to have different textbook for different regions, but now that we have the same one, it's absolutely fantastic because you can actually depend on the textbook, or even you can have the download workbook if for teachers. Your download workbook is an excellent source for you to go or prepare something that is beyond the textbook, but still within the confines of what is required for the examination itself. So yeah, the textbook, to answer that question, yeah, it's very important. So I think I should go. Nazatul Daniel said, yeah, the Form 5 and Form 4 textbook is amazing, are amazing. So I'll go on now. I'm going to focus on reviews. Now, why am I focusing on reviews? Is that this is a thing that truly stands out. It has never been tested in the last 15 years, almost 20 years, has never been tested. And why? Because there is a relevance of review actually now to the climate or the society that we have among our teenagers, where we're living in this social media world. We are communicating with each other. So the types of reviews that might come out, what might be tested in SPM itself, might be a book review, a movie review, a restaurant review, maybe a gadget review, or any other products out there. Could be a song review, could be a television show, could be a website. And the great thing about this review question is it will only be concerned about yourself. In other words, what I'm telling you is that before the examination, you can actually try to write reviews about a book that you like, a book that you don't like. Write a review about a movie that you like, a movie that you don't like, and so on and so forth for the restaurant, the gadget, the product, the song, the television show. So you have to like get familiar with really giving your opinions and finding reasons about why you like it. You can sort of like prepare yourself for the SPM itself, because then the content is already at the back of your mind. I'm not asking you to memorize. This is not about memorizing. This is about preparing. How can you truly prepare yourself to answer this question? Is by writing about it and thinking about it even before the examination. And that's the beauty about the review question, because it's personal. It's not something that is just confined to only what the question wants. You are going to give your input to it. If you compare about the school canteen, you still have to think about what school canteens have or don't have. But for movies, you would truly write about what you understand or don't understand, what you like or you don't like about certain product. So the relevance is further extended because you can't help it. You write comments everywhere. You give feedback to everything that you see, even in this YouTube presentation. We can see that, like I'm doing right now, we could see that you are able to give me comments of whether I'm doing a good job or not so good job. So this is actually kind of a review as well. Because when you write reviews, you are showing that you are sharing because you don't want other people to do the same mistake. It's a way of saying thank you to other people. You are making recommendation for them to improve. Some teenagers out there write reviews so that you can collect rewards and prizes. There are competitions out there. And then like the pictures that I have here, I follow these people, and they can turn it into a career, like Zaf Vlog, just give opinions on movies. PewDiePie gives no, a walk through games and review games, and if he says it's good, then people will buy it, and people actually pay him to do that. And this Ryan boy who reviews toys, I'm sure your brothers and sisters know this. This kid already easily earning millions by just giving reviews. So this is something that is getting relevant to you. You can actually make money out of it. And I would say it's considered now a social responsibility to provide reviews for anything that you purchase or anything that you purchase or consume, because it would allow other people to have sort of like a pre idea lah before they step into it. So reviews are actually very relevant to your life, and I really like it that they have included it in the 1119 paper. So let's look at the question. Okay, so coming to the how do we derive the treatise. Always go back to the question. The question will give you the treatise that you need to address. So my first T for this one is, I've only got two actually for this one. Of course, it's a movie. It's a movie review, so you have to identify the movie first. And then for this question, you have to say what you enjoyed about the movie. And seeing from here, I underline enjoyed about the movie. So I know that, oh, this is something that I have to write in the past tense, because have you watched any interesting movies lately? So the first one is in present perfect, which means that it's in the past. And then my second sentence is in the past tense as well. Say what you enjoyed about the movie. So that's in the past tense. So I know that, okay, for this one, my tense is actually the past tense. Some reviews, they might ask the question in the present tense. So you have to look at the question to derive your treatise. I also know that this one is formal yet personal because you are writing this in a magazine. Remember, when the scope is beyond your classroom, when you write for a magazine for worldwide or nationwide, then the tone will somewhat become formal. But because this is your favorite movie, it will also be personal. And then the task that we have here, can you excuse me for a while? Adrina, can you call daddy? Can you take the thing outside there? I am so sorry for my um, lack of professionalism. Something is being delivered to the home. Okay, so coming back to the task that we have here, I know the tense is in the past tense. The task is 2 questions that you need to address. And then the tone, I know it's personal, although it's formal. You're writing for a bigger audience, but it's personal because you are giving your own opinion. So this is a fine line that you have to tread. Okay, I'm formal, but I'm also personal. So remember, the moment that you know it's a formal and you need to establish like a bit more of like formality, use passive sentences. Passive sentences, if you are form 5, will be in unit 5 and also unit 7. Sorry, unit 7. You will learn about passive sentences. Look into that. Building passive sentences will allow you to have something that you say is actually coming from you, but it's not really, you don't put I and my in that sentence. Okay, that's the whole idea about passive sentence. So you have a tone of formal and personal. The tense is past tense, and these are the questions that you have to ask or have to answer. Say what you enjoyed about the movie. So here, remember I said just now, similar to part 2, similar to part 1. When they ask you what, you only answer one. Where should we go? So it's a place. Satu tempat sahaja, only one. What do you want to buy? One thing only that you want to buy. But the next question is when you give 2 alternatives. So say what you enjoyed about the movie. Here you can give 2 or 3, but I would recommend sticking to 2 and you give some elaboration. There is one question asking here. How do I know when to write elaboration, example, and cause? Well, the simplest way is by ensuring that you're using the correct connector. When you are writing for a course, you write, you answer the question first, like what you enjoy. I enjoyed the movie because it was very light-hearted or it's very funny. Full stop. And you, if you want to write effect, then you will say in effect, my whole family. So you can use words like that to indicate that you are using the correct elaboration. So look at the connectors. For effect is so, hence, thus, in effect. If it's cause, then you would say due to, as, so as to. You would use because, you know, those are for cause. An example would be, for example, as an example, as an extension of that. That would be for examples. So the great idea about writing elaboration is you answer the question first in one sentence and then you immediately follow by elaboration and make sure it's only one. In part 3, you can give 2 elaborations for every point. That would be sufficient. Okay, but not more than that. So what are the 3 T's for this question? Okay, so for this one, I'm going to derive it a bit into better planning. So how many paragraphs are we going to write in part 3? If in part 1, only 1 paragraph. Part 2, 3 paragraphs would be sufficient. And in part 3, 4 paragraphs would be sufficient. Some of you might go on to 5, but I would say 4 is enough because it's about 200 to 250 words. So 1 paragraph has about 50 to 60 words. That would be just nice. So in the first paragraph, if you're giving a review, if it's a movie, it could be a fictional movie, it could be a real movie. The examiners aren't going to check whether this movie really exists or not. Okay, so don't worry about talking about a movie that doesn't exist, or you are afraid about talking about a movie that is so obscure. Takutlah orang lain tak pernah dengar movie ni. Don't worry about that. Okay, you just choose a movie. It could be fictional, it could be real, but I would suggest something that's real. You can provide some background to that movie. Like these are the information: the actors, directors, brief, main plot, box office collection. If you're talking about books, then you can talk about who is the author, who is the publisher, when was it published, how many books have it sold, has it sold. And if you're talking about a restaurant, when was it first opened, what is its main cuisine, who is the chef. If you're talking about products, like a gadget, when was it launched, what is its technology, a little bit of element, and that was in my part 2 as well. So a brief background. How many words do you need to write on this? About 60 will be fine. So you might think 60 words, that's a lot. But trust me, a lot of you are writing more than that and not realizing that you are writing already 250 words. So for paragraph 2 and 3, I've decided, because this is the main topic, this is the main crux of this question, of this part 3 that I've chosen this question. So the reasons for liking this movie. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to divide it into 2 paragraphs. One reason, one paragraph, and another reason is in another paragraph. And these are the possible reasons for liking a movie: the storyline, the acting skills, the genre specific thrills. That might be a little bit flashy, a bit the word for you, but it could be if you like action movies, you like the shooting scenes. If you like war movies, you like the battle scenes. If you like romantic comedy, you like the romantic scenes. So these are the genre specific thrills. You like the language, cinematography, soundtrack, moral values that you have learned, and also the setting. Um, your cohort, the Form 4 and the Form 5 for the new ones, you don't really, you're not going to be um, assessed for your novel response. But when you study your novel, you have learned how to do the setting, the time, the place, the culture, and this would help you. And also the moral value, this will help you to extend it to the movie review. So what you learn when you're learning your novel is not necessarily useless. It will be applicable when you're writing this question because you're using that knowledge into this, writing this review. Okay. And paragraph 4, they say, would you recommend it to your friend? I would suggest, please, SPM candidate, do not answer no. Because if you notice for this question, okay, this question, they never ask you what you didn't like about the movie. They only wanted to know what you enjoyed about the movie. So the overall idea between or behind this review is going to be a positive one. So don't, it's not necessary for you to answer what you liked about the movie and what you don't like about the movie, because this question doesn't require you to do so. So only focus on what the question wants. The task only wants you to write about what you enjoyed about the movie. So naturally, if you are writing about something that you like, it will be preposterous for you to say, oh, yeah, I like this movie, but I'm not going to recommend it to you. So always opt for yes. And I've shared some possible reasons over here because it's educational, it's entertaining, and it caters to a specific crowd. Now, notice that these things could be used for almost all of the reviews. If you're talking about reviewing a book, it's applicable. If you're talking about reviewing a restaurant, yes, certain restaurants could be educational for the for the customers. It's entertaining because we can. It's part of entertaining entertainment that you can do with your family. It caters to a specific crowd. You only need to choose 2, but you can write 3 if you don't have enough words. But I believe if you give 1 reason plus elaboration, 2 is sufficient. And these ones can be applicable for almost all questions. I've got one question that I seen here just now. So is review the safe option? I wouldn't say it's a safe option. I would say it's an interesting one where you can actually sort of make some preparation for it. But also be prepared with the probability that perhaps this year, if you're from 5, the review question is not even going to come out. And that's not going to be wrong either. So don't harp so much on the format or the really prepare for only one. You need to prepare for all 3. or all kinds of writing. The reason why I'm focusing on this is that it's relevant to your current life, and it's something new that hasn't been tested in SPM before. So these are the things, these are the tasks, these are the planning part that I will go into just to look at it more specifically of what you can write. And this is my sample. I've This is a sample from my student actually, and I edited it a bit. So it's 250 words. I have written in 295. Did I exceed 20%? Not really. Okay, because keep it within 20% lah if you want to write more. Okay, so 295 words is about 50 words more. Can you cut it down for this one? I believe you can. But if you can write up to 300 words, that will be the cut off limit that I would say for part 3. So keep it within 250, but if you cannot help it, the most that you should write or you could write is 300 words. So the way that I have arranged this is that the introduction is about 58 words, and then the 150, because this is the addressing the first question of have you watched a movie recently, what movie is it. Okay, so this one I only said the title of the movie, and I only give 2 ideas for the background, which is the director and a bit about the cast, not much. Okay, the introduction. And in my second paragraph and my third paragraph is where I say the reasons why I like it. And you could see that I have given 2 elaboration for each of my reason. My reason was the storyline was engaging and kept the audience on their toes at all time. And then my next 2 sentences is actually elaboration for my first point, because I believe this is part 3 where the language that I have to use is more grammatical, a more complex grammatical structure. That is one of the things that I look at. And also, as an examiner, you look at the language, you are looking for more complex words, more than just your daily usage of vocabulary, and it's used appropriately. So that's why for this part, I'm trying to use words that are a bit outstanding. So I've got the word helmed, I've got the word, I've got this expression, kept the audience on their toes. So if you are asking me, should I put idioms in? Should I put expressions in? Yes, you can if it serves the purpose. But don't strive too hard that you put in idioms that just don't make sense. Like, one of the things that you should really take out from your vernacular is flying colors, because those things are not considered as outstanding anymore. If you use it, it has no impact on your writing. So instead, you can say expressions like he hit the ball out of the park with his result. Now, that would be outstanding. But flying colors and using it in a wrong way, it's not necessarily going to help you. Instead, it's going to damage you. So you can use expressions, but don't strive too hard that you try to put it in even if it doesn't work. So here I have one example of how I give one reason but 2 elaboration. And I signpost my 2 elaboration by using cohesive devices like furthermore. And I've got besides the storyline. So this one is, I'm going to give another one. So I know using this cohesive device is an extension of the previous paragraph. So using this cohesive device, I get better marks for my organization. And you can see that the length of my paragraph is about the same. It's not too long. Not one paragraph is too long. It's actually my student's work. Okay, I should give credit to my student. My student's paragraph is not too long or too short in certain instances. It's about the same with the difference of 1 to 2 lines difference, and maybe about 10 to 12 words difference in every paragraph. Having your paragraph appearing in the same length will give the impression that you have done a good job in the organization. And truly, if you can organize your ideas in a structured way, you can get a higher mark for the organization. So the tone that has been established for this one is formal yet personal. Why do I do that? Because I've got personal pronoun like I and me, but not so much. In compared to part 1 and part 2 just now, I have a lot of yellows. You could see a lot more yellows than in this one. I probably have one, I and my, in every paragraph. What I use a lot more is making sure that it's passive. I put the object in front. So it would be my opinion, but I present it objectively. So that's how you establish a formal tone. So study your passive sentences, kids. That would really help you. Okay, I also use expressions like the former, the latter, words that are very suitable for the context of a movie review, like the letter who essayed the role of Ibu. So these words comes from real movie reviews that I have to give props to my student for coming up with these such words. And I've also worked on it a bit. So yeah, having established all this, I was very confident to give my student a 19 on this piece of essay because I have found the things that I needed, which are complex grammatical structure. I've got words that I use beyond the daily context. I've also got cohesive devices. I've got connectors. I've got structurally divided paragraphs that are well planned, well organized. In terms of tasks, this candidate answered all of the tasks by giving 2 reasons why he liked the movie plus elaboration. He gave one recommendation of yes, he would recommend it, and he gave 2 reasons for it. So the task is fulfilled, the tone is fulfilled, and as well as the tense is consistently past tense from the beginning to the end, except for when you would have a model, right? You would come across that would be. That would be ni pun is still actually in the past context, is the past tense. Because if you use in the present tense, it will be it will be, or future tense it will be will be. But having to use would here is actually showing past tense. So the whole text is consistently in the simple past tense. They did not use a lot of past continuous. There are a few, like the former was terrifying. You have a little bit of past continuous, but mostly is in the past, simple past tense. Okay, so I would, right, so the total number of words is 295. Right, so for the conclusion of the task itself of my presentation today, a few things that you have to look at is the relevance of the question itself. All of the part 1, part 2, part 3 questions are actually in very relevant to your daily life. You send emails all the time. You write essays to share your feelings. And in the context of writing a review, very relevant to your daily life. You might be doing this more often than you know, right? So when you write, for example, you have used the product and you want to share your experience, you use it on, you can share it on Instagram, you can share it on Facebook, Reddit, or Shopee when you have purchased something. So it's something that you will always do, and it's good for you to know how to do it. So it's very relevant to your life. So the treatise, this is the thing that I truly want you to derive from this whole presentation, to draw out the task, the tone, and the tense from the question before you begin writing your essay. Put it at the side of your paper before you start writing it so that you're always reminded what you need to do. Question. Be mindful of all the word count and draw out the question to be placed into the task box. So when you understand the question, you know how many questions you need to answer. It will be easier for you to plan your essay. So plan it. Provide 2 answers to each question that you have in the task and elaborate it with cause, effect, and example. So CE square. So good luck to all the SPM candidates. Thank you so much for joining the session today. What I've done so far is just what I can truly share with everybody. I hope it has been beneficial. And if you have further questions, or you can feel free to drop me an email at anashirin@gmail.com. If you're able to find
How do
me,
you spell that? anashirin@gmail.com.
is
Alright.
actually on the last slide over here.
Oh, see. Sorry, tak perasan.
Yeah, no worries, no
Okay.
worries. It's I
Anna,
think
there's a few questions. There's
sure.
This person keep on commenting with the questions. Would you recommend? You mean because you said you encourage the students to answer yes if they would like to recommend the movie to their friends.
Yeah.
So this person is saying,
Mhm.
you mean the students are forced to say yes, or rather to recommend though they don't like the movie? Can you please
Okay.
respond?
All right. I like that question. Perhaps I did not phrase my idea correctly just now. So to address this particular candidate, I would suggest that you always opt for yes. Um, because you have the liberty, you have the freedom to choose whatever movie that you like. Why would you write a movie that you don't
You
like
don't
and
like.
you wouldn't recommend when you're actually talking about something that you like about the movie? So we're going along a logical line over here. um, in case this candidate strongly feels that I don't want to follow the norm, I want to step outside of the mainstream, sure, perhaps you can say, I wouldn't recommend this movie to someone who has a weak heart. Like for example, for a horror movie, then perhaps that could be one of the options. Um, okay, sorry. It could be one of the options. Like I wouldn't recommend this to everyone, especially those with a weak heart. But for the general population, you should give it a go. But remember, when you say no, you have to give reasons that doesn't um, contradict with your own reasons of why you like the movie. So I'm going along a logical line over here. That if you talk about something that you like, it's most logical that you recommend it to friends. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? That'll be great.
Um, I think you've given us a very clear explanation, Miss Anna, and people are commenting how they like your explanation, that they understood it. Your explanation is so clear and useful for us, and everybody is saying thank you.
Right.
Uh, okay. All
I'm
right.
I'm just glad if I can help at least 10 people today. I'll be more than grateful lah if I can help people. Yeah.
Okay, and then I would like to tell the audience that the link for your e-cert for your kehadiran today is on the comment section. Please write your name clear. Please don't misspell your name lah, because I wouldn't generate a second cert for you. So whatever that you wrote on whatever you type in the Google form, that will come up in your certificate. Okay. So for teachers as well, if you fill in the kehadiran, you'll be getting SPL KPM. For students, you'll be getting a sijil penyertaan for attending today's class. So if you have any questions, you can email Miss Anna at annashirin@gmail.com. I put
Right.
the email address further up. You can scroll up. Um, yeah, anything else that you guys would like to ask Teacher Anna or me? You can write in the comment section. Thank you so much, Miss Anna.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Okay.
As a commemorate for my last session with USTPPPD Manjong.
Oh.
So good that I can do it with you, my good friend. Okay. Adam tak boleh cari apa Adam? Adam Haris ni, I can't find it. Okay. So we also have Teacher Farini. So if any question, they were asking, can you share the PowerPoint slides with the teachers in my district if you don't mind?
Yeah, I can send it over to you, I guess.
Ah, okay. All right. That
Yeah.
would be
And
very,
then
very,
and you can share it with people. Yep.
yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that's all.
Hmm.
Please fill in the kehadiran. Sekejap, I tampal lagi sekali. Ten, 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 ten. Oh, the Gmail is anashirin@gmail.com. Okay. All right. So this is the last session for tuition PdPR online series 2. But I know there will be more session in the future. So please stay tuned, subscribe to our channel and like this video. All right. Bye-bye everyone. Bye.
Thank you for
Assalamualaikum.
the opportunity, Cik Nisa.
All right.
Okay.